We close with the Senator and former President Alvaro Uribe Velez. Thank you, Mr. President. Solidarity with the issues that afflict the country and have been brought tonight. The issue of innumerable deaths, murders, kidnappings, everything we have inherited. But I want to refer tonight, Mr. President, after an intervention I heard recently, to give reasons as to why the international community should look for legal ways to intervene in Venezuela. As President Ivan Duque proposed. One compares the dimensions of the European crisis due to the influx of refugees from the Syrian conflict. In a year, there has been 230,000. Germany, approximately 390,000 have been added. Created a huge problem to the government of Mrs. Merkel, and that has strengthened an extremely nationalist party. Chauvinistic, it would be said, in the language of the youth of my generation. Approximately 450,000 Venezuelans have arrived to Chile. Majority by land, crossing all the territory of Colombia, Ecuador and Peru. It's a reason that confirms to those who estimate that 1 million Venezuelans are already in our country.
Por eso quería decir que ojalá.
About this, I wanted to say, I hope an intervention in the terms proposed by President Ivan Duque go ahead. To stop this tragedy of Venezuela, so that the dictatorship is overcome and that this nation can start to recover. I wanted to clarify in the name of this bench that for us, in these circumstances, the principle of non-intervention is an unacceptable excuse, because today prevails the duty of us all, according to the OAS, Democratic Charter and the United Nations. OAS meeting of the 5th of September in Washington, in which the issue of Venezuelan migration was addressed by a group of Latin American countries. Former President Uribe, now Senator of the Republic, made a speech in the Senate, speaking precisely about this issue and hinting at the approach that our President Duque is taking about the possibility of a near future military intervention by Colombia to solve the migration problem. That, according to Senator Uribe, our neighbouring country Venezuela is going through. And the Senator of the Republic, Uribe, refers to the issue of Syria. Because in Syria, since 2011, there has been a civil war in which practically a quarter of the population has fled to other countries. He mentions the issue of chauvinism, which he says is a term that was used when he was young, in his youth. But in reality, the term chauvinist comes from the year 1930. Famous comedy, The Tricolour Cockade, where the main character named Chauvin, chauvinism, represented or played a character with a very patriotic approach to this topic. And that is how this term came to be, chauvinism. But this patriotic feeling that has increased in Europe with the arrival of so many immigrants from Syria, not be said that because of this migration of inhabitants from Syria, or this migration of inhabitants from Venezuela, this chauvinism that has been encouraged in different populations, different countries in Latin America, is the direct cause for Colombia to feel entitled to intervene in Venezuela. As a matter of fact, the central axis of the OAS, at its creation in 1948, the central axis was the protection of the sovereignty of nations, the non-intervention. And this is the central purpose, the central objective of the OAS. Then in 2001, the famous Democratic Charter was created. That says, when the democratic order in a certain country is affected, the OAS meets and determines to what country this democratic charter is applied. Obviously, this is done when a country does not decree popular elections. The elections that took place recently in Venezuela, where Maduro won, there is no conclusive evidence that he was elected with fraud. There is no evidence of fraud. Therefore, the OAS cannot at any say that President Maduro was illegally elected. The same as the National Constituent Assembly, which is supported by Article 347, 348 and 349 of the Constitution of the year 1999, that allowed calling for this National Constituent Assembly and so many things happening in Venezuela. That is said that in Venezuela there has been a breaking of the democratic order. But this does not mean that Senator Uribe has authority and credibility that in the near future Colombia would have the right to militarily intervene in Venezuela. Article 3 of the OAS says that a foreign country cannot attack another. Article 25 says that in this democratic charter, what can be done has to be done peacefully through conciliations, arbitrations and negotiations. At no time, neither the OAS nor its democratic charter stipulates that the principle of non-intervention, principles of the sovereignty of the peoples, can be interfered by this democratic charter. Therefore, the proposal of Senator Uribe does not make sense in the context of this OAS group founded in 1940. Whether Senator Uribe proposes something else, or wants to create another group of nations within the OAS, so that additionally to the mechanism of the democratic charter, create other mechanisms that allow military intervention to another member country of the OAS. It could be, but for now this proposal at the Senate by Senator Uribe this year, 2018, and this proposal will have nothing to do with any decision that Senator Uribe may take. It is about time for President Duque to be independent from his mentor, Senator Uribe, and for President Duque to start to think for himself what he's going to do within the law framework in the context of what is allowed by this organization of the OAS that Colombia is part of. Outside this, if the OAS does not approve military interventions from one country to another, and in this moment Venezuela is not attacking any other country militarily, even less this issue of war intervention can be contemplated when the problem is within Venezuela. At no time did Senator Uribe address the issue caused by the Decree 08 of the Bank of the Republic, neither about the creation of currency exchanges in Cúcuta that have done so much harm to the Venezuelan economy. Nor did Senator Uribe tell his audience about how the drop in the oil prices that went down to $25 from a $100 a barrel affected Venezuela for 36 consecutive months. Even more, during this time, almost 3 years, Venezuela issued national debt payments of $74 billion, even after the oil dropped to $25 a barrel. It seriously affected the economy of the country. The productive apparatus was affected as nobody can imagine. And while Senator Uribe was giving this speech in the Senate of the Republic of my country, Colombia, President Maduro in Venezuela was giving Venezuelan merchants, manufacturers and producers loans from different private and public banks to the amount of $150 million, 9 billion sovereign bolivars to increase production in Venezuela, so that his country starts to get out of the oil rent culture that has done so much harm, so that Venezuela begins to produce in many sectors as it has never done before. This is something that Senator Uribe did not let his audience know in his last Congress intervention, where he simply proposed a war position, military intervention in the internal affairs of Venezuela. Because everyone who left Venezuela, one by one, should be asked their reasons. Because not everyone who left Venezuela did so for the same reasons as those who left Syria in 2011. More than 6 million for reasons of a civil war and because of intervention of many countries that have bombed this country and people had to flee. They have no other solution. Venezuela, it has not been the same. Senator Uribe cannot say that all these economic problems that Venezuela has gone through have been the sole fault of President Maduro and his cabinet. This problem that Venezuela has been going through in recent months and years, financial and economic problems, have their explanation, as Venezuelans and Colombians would like to have an explanation why this Decree 08 was created by the Bank of the Republic of Colombia, to document step by step all the effects that this resolution has had in the economy of our neighbouring country, Venezuela, and its catastrophic effects, so as not to have to blame Maduro once and for all. Maduro, a man who at this moment takes giant leaps of efforts to take his nation forward. Mañana con otra historia, Santiago Gutiérrez Villegas desde Medellín, Colombia.